everybody. This is Taruja here, and thank you so much for taking out time today this morning. For those of you who are not acquainted with Knolscape, just wanted to share that we are present in 5 countries currently. That's the US, UK, India, Singapore, and Malaysia. So we have our headquarters in Singapore and an office, a smaller head office in India as well. So just a quick thing on the right-hand side, these are few of the organizations that we have worked with. Every year we have over 500,000 learners and counting. And of course, we've worked with more than 450 organizations globally. So this is just a little bit about who we are and talking about what we really do. So since we believe in getting organizations ready for future, what we really focus on are the 3 pillars of the leadership readiness, digital readiness, and the culture. So these are the 3 things that we really focus on. And for each, we of course have a lot of solutions and a lot of simulations that are quite popular as well. So talking about the 3 pillars, what we really feel is that we want the organizations to be ready, and we really focus on the learner as well as the organization. So what we have is solutions that engage the learner and provide benefits to the organization as a whole. So what you see over here were some of the simulations that we have, and they include focus on, I'm sorry, but I think somebody else is maneuvering the screen, so my slides are just running around. So if you could not do that, thank you very much. So we have simulations that focus on leadership. Every learning that we have has content that is based on globally renowned frameworks. So we have a learn part to it where we do talk about the concepts, the learning. The play comes from the simulations themselves. And then we have a reflect where each learner who plays the simulation gets a personalized report. Right? So it's the learn, play, and reflect methodology that we go ahead and look at. We have simulations that talk about critical thinking based on a Grand Prix model of racing. We have the change management simulation. We have, like I said, about leadership, emotional intelligence, unconscious bias, what you'll be looking at today. And we also have a simulation for digital transformation, which talks about the whole ecosystem in whole. And one of the reasons why we feel simulations are the way to go is, as Fariha said, learning should not be left to the traditional way. It should be something that is engaging. We also feel it should be something that creates impact and retention as well. So since we know that our brain absorbs things by seeing, hearing, reading, but also by doing. So what the simulations with the latest research with the current generation has been that almost 65% of them prefer simulations as a way of learning to other things. And it all and it's not only very data enabled, high tech, high touch, has analytics and frameworks to back up, but it also has a lot of personalization. And it's that safe learning environment where they can actually bridge the gap between what they have learned in the classroom to what they're going to do outside in the learning environment, back to their roles where they may not have that support. And I think that's one of the things that is missing from a lot of learning interventions that we see today. So that's what Knolscape brings to the table. And without taking a lot of time ahead, what I would like to do is hand it over to Dr. Tulika, who's going to be talking about unconscious bias a little more today, which is the simulation that you would be experiencing as well. So, Dr. Tulika, over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Taruja. And here I come. Hello, everybody. Are you all able to hear me loud and clear? If yes, quickly use the chat box, or you can use an emoji and let me know that you can all hear me absolutely clearly. Okay.
We can hear you, Dr. Tulika.
Thank you, Faria, for confirming. Amazing. All right. So welcome to a quick glimpse on how does, an entire conversation around overcoming unconscious bias at work really functions. Now, you've got an introduction of Focus You as well as Knolscape. Let me also tell you, how does a typical program, a typical session functions for us? Most of our programs are divided into 3 phases. The first phase is where we call it as a learning phase. Discussion around concepts, around frameworks, what needs to be done is what we discuss in our first phase. Same program, the phase 2 begins because it's very important to translate your learning into an action. The retention of learning stays, or rather happens in a much more better manner when it's translated into an action. And that's where the simulation enters. Now, in the simulation, we give you a certain scenario. You have a role to play. You have certain objectives to achieve. We throw certain challenges onto your way. And, by overcoming those challenges, you are going to be, reaching out with an objective. In very simple terms, you're playing a simple video game where you only have one life, but this is more relatable to what we do in our everyday situations. And that's a simulation. Phase 2 over. Phase 3 comes in, as Taruja was just telling you, that you will be all able to download an individual report. So phase 3 happens to be the reflect phase. So we discuss what went well, what did not go so well, what could have gone better, what were the difficulty or the challenges that you were facing while you were playing the simulation, etc. And then we take you through your report, the elements of your report. That's reflection. So 3 stages in terms of how the whole program runs. And that's exactly the flavor that we are going to give you. But before that, let me quickly take a minute to introduce myself to all of you. My name is Dr. Tulika Pandit. You can call me Dr. T. I hold around 17 years of experience in the field of facilitation, mentoring, and coaching. Have a PhD in brain and behavioral sciences and an MBA, both from the University of Florida. I am a certified coach from the International Coaching Federation and also one of the honorary therapists from the American Board of Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I'll keep on talking to you more about myself. For now, let's quickly plunge and take a flavor, the first flavor of what happens in the first phase. So the first phase is all about learning. Let us discuss about unconscious bias. I would definitely want to ask the host, will the participants be able to use the chat box or unmute themselves? Tarika, Fariha?
Yes, they will be.
Perfect. So my question to all of you is, and I'm going to take a quick 30 minutes for the first phase. My question is, how do you understand unconscious bias? What is your understanding of this terminology? You can raise your hands and answer. You can unmute yourself or use the chat box. Come on, let's take 30 seconds to do this. How do you understand unconscious bias?
Can I?
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
I am Dr. Hirendra.
Hello, sir.
I'm a coach going into my PCC by March.
Wonderful, wonderful. So the right person to answer this question, how do you understand unconscious bias?
Unconscious bias is about involuntarily involuntarily becoming judgmental.
Okay.
And taking decisions or acting as per our own thought process.
All right.
That is what I understand.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, doctor. All right. Somebody else would want to take a plunge into this and want to really understand or give us your understanding of unconscious bias. You can also give me an example that comes into your mind. I'm okay with that. Hmm. So let me ask you. Yes, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, this is Richa. I am an HR professional and a life coach as well.
Wow.
So, unconscious bias, from what I understand, is that that is something which is fed into your mind
Mhm.
um, through your day-to-day life, which is something that you have accepted as it is. And and when you when you interact with people or when you meet new people, so that unconscious bias automatically plays behind your mind even if you don't want to be biased.
Right,
So
right.
let's say if somebody give, I have seen that on a in an ad as well,
Mm.
that there was an ad wherein a son was talking to somebody and he was saying, my parent is a CEO, they won't be able to come to my school, so it'll be difficult for them to come. And then suddenly, the theme was that everybody thought it will be the father,
Yes.
but actually it was the mother. So that was a very
Mm.
obvious answer in that I think video. It was on LinkedIn. Everybody said it must be mother. So does he have, like, does his father has two mothers or what? So
Right.
so it was actually, so that is uh, a small example of unconscious bias. And
Absolutely.
I think it's very normal for us to have those pre-notions in our mind whenever we feel that, oh, if somebody is coming from a certain section of the society, they must be doing that kind of work only.
I completely agree. Absolutely, Richa. Thank
Right?
you for putting
So,
it so nicely.
yeah.
And I'm sure as a life coach, you must be coming across a lot of, a lot of instances where perhaps the unconscious bias has been a very major reason for the difficulties or the issues or the problem that people face. Great.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yes.
That's very common to come across.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Richa. I've got Kanika who's saying that, iceberg model of Freud. Yes. So something which you see and something which is deep, deep down. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for letting us know about your thought processes around what is an unconscious bias. As very aptly put by all of you, yes, unconscious bias is something that is right there into our mind. You look at certain things and there's a perception that comes across, and this perception creates a bias into your mind, right? And we take decisions around that bias. We take decisions around what that perception, that experience has been so far. And that is the unconscious bias that we are talking to you about. Hey, thank you, Nagesh, for letting us know. Yes, they are your experiences and belief. Exactly what I just said. Perfect. Awesome. Super. Thank you. That's great. That's great. So when I talk about unconscious bias, a very simple thought or an example comes into my mind. So you are driving your car, and then there is a car which is right in front of you. Somebody else is driving the car, and this person puts up the right indicator but turns left, right? Or the car is just moving, it's waving, it's not going on in a perfect one lane, but rather it's constantly changing lane. What is going to be your first thought about the driver? Who is driving the car as per your thought process?
As normal notion, the first statement would be, oh, it's a woman.
Why do you think this thought comes in, Richa? And it's for everybody else also. So Richa says it's a woman. I hope a lot of you are going to agree with the statement, right? Why? So I'll tell you from where this thing has come in. So I have a younger brother, and just a couple of days back, we were both driving here in Bangalore, and I was on the driving seat, and my brother was like, I am the one who taught him driving, and he's the one, like, giving me instructions, drive properly, yeah? Right indicator, left indicator, be very cautious about that. So I was like, listen, come on, you know what? Every time you take the car and when you come back, it is scratched. So far, when I take up the car, it comes like proper, absolutely well. So it's a skill, not the gender. I said, no, Dee, you don't understand. The girls cannot drive the cars that easily. And I asked him, okay, then in that case, get down off my car and take a cab and come. So all of those elements are right there, and that's your unconscious bias. It could be not your experience, but it could be a generic perception that we have heard for such a long time that it has become a part of our thought process. Needless to say, when I say this, a lot of you might not come across and say, okay, it should be a woman driver, but that is the first thought that comes into people's mind. And that is an unconscious bias. Right, so that's an unconscious bias, and that's how the unconscious bias delves deeper into our system, impacts our decision-making processes, impacts the way that we work with people, impacts the way from, for an entire employee life cycle. I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit more. That's a simple agenda. We'll talk about the theory and the framework for the next 20 odd minutes, and then I will give you a quick walkthrough of how are you going to play the simulation, and you will be able to play it for the 30 minutes time that we have kept today. And then we will have a report and a debrief walkthrough. So got some of these fabulous statements, and just take a look and give yourself a point if you have used or you have come across these statements, statements like, I think we need to move this to the blacklist. That's actually a good idea. Just give yourself a point if you have used it. I have given myself like what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all 6 points. Because yes, I have at different stages in different time period used these statements. And you can also type any other statement that you have heard which reflects the unconscious bias. More than eager to see them as well. So let's take a look at the statement which says, all right, the new kid that we recently hired is doing a great job. What is the unconscious bias that you see here? The new kid that we recently hired is doing a great job.
Boy.
Okay.
The fact that the person must be relatively lesser in terms of years of experience.
Yes.
And that's why you're saying new kid?
Yes. Yes. So perhaps, because yes, exactly. You've all got it right. We are talking about the word kid here, right? Somebody who's a professional, he must have joined us, right? Why are we calling the person a kid? Just, yes, Mohini, absolutely. Just because the person is a little younger to us in age and experience, that there's an unconscious bias. I am older to the person. I'm more experienced. So this person becomes a new kid. But if you're working with the Gen Z, you will actually find out that they do not like the word kid. They say, I'm a professional as good as you are. Maybe you, because you have experience, you can call yourself as, as a veteran or as somebody who's older in the organization, but don't call me a kid. That word kid in itself is reflecting the unbiased, I would say, the unconscious bias, wherein we probably will not take the person very seriously when they come for a decision making. We probably will not be absolutely trying to understand the person's point of view, because for us, in our mind, it's just a kid. That's a reason. How about the very first statement which says, I think we need to move this to the blacklist? What is the implication? What is the unconscious bias here? I think we need to move this to the blacklist.
Rejected.
Rejected. Okay. Why is this list called a blacklist? Not any other color, maroon list or beige list or lilac list. It's called a blacklist for a certain reason. So when the world was, somebody said something to me. Please go ahead.
No, I think with black, we always connect end, right? So we feel that black means it's a end of the thing, or when you say black, there'll be nothing will pass on from there. So when we say just blacklist this company or blacklist these candidates, that means they will never come into the process again.
Okay, thanks, Richa, for that wonderful response. So years back, when there was this entire fight for racism that was happening, Universities all across the globe, especially in the West, they used to create two lists. The first list was known as the white list. Now, this white list has the names of the children or the students who were white in color. And then there was a blacklist. Now, blacklist has people who were color-wise black, and they wanted to make a list, two different lists, because there was a time when we talk about a scientist called George Washington Carver, while he was studying, he was made to sit at the corner of the room, and the other were all sitting in front. So he gathered his information like Ekalavya. But that's how the list was, and that's where this terminology of blacklist came in. And today, whenever we do not want to work with somebody, or we feel that this particular vendor is not good enough for us, we put them into the blacklist. We only will use them when nothing else is happening. Then maybe we'll work with them. That is an unconscious bias, right? So it is so very well seeped inside our mind that when it comes to all of these elements, that's how it works. New technology can be learned rather quickly by the youngers than by the people who are elder in age. Ageism, that's an unconscious bias. My mother is 63, she's far more tech savvy than I am. So I don't think so there is an ageism that comes in. It's again the way that you learn a skill. It's again a way in which we understand. Imagine now. I've just given you some 6, 7 of these unconscious biases. But then there are so many of them, right? So there are unconscious biases around age, around gender, around region, around halo, around somebody who's like always gets angry. So that person is very short-tempered. If we don't just want to understand why, it's like just we give a tag, and that tag becomes the major reason for us to carry on with our unconscious bias. Right? And that's how the unconscious bias functions. So in simple terms, if I have to define it for all of you, I would say it's the underlying thoughts and attitudes which shape up with our experiences, which also shapes up when we observe somebody else's experience, right? That's there. And most important thing to agree upon is that we all have biases. There's no one who can come and say, no, I don't have any bias. That in itself is an unconscious bias that the person has. We all have biases, and it's perfectly all right, because our mind is functional. It's creating that kind of thought processes for us. It is creating those perceptions, those attitudes, those beliefs for us. And therefore, it's okay. The part here is that, how do I manage it well? Because at end of the day, it is an indication of, the way the conditioning has been. It is an indication of the way that it has happened. Let me give you an example. So a friend of mine who's in HR with one of the organizations was narrating this incident. And he said that for a certain team, we hired around 6 freshers from this particular region. And all of 6 of them, they came to Bangalore, they joined in, they completed the KT, they completed the orientation process around, we invested some money into them, 2 months. They were staying at a nice hotel. We were bearing the cost of everything. After 2 months, they were deployed to different places for different kind of work. And there was like, out of 6 of them, 3 of them were working in the same team. After around 15 days, all of the 3, they absconded. They were unresponsive. They were not responding to emails, phone calls, nothing at all. Absolutely ghosted the organization, ghosted the manager, the HR as well. And somehow, we had no other choice. We waited for 7 days, and as per the company policies, they were terminated from our payrolls. Anyhow, that was like one part of it. The second time, now there were 3 vacancies, and we were supposed to fill it rather quickly. So we started up with the process, and the manager comes up and says, I do not want people from that region. None of them in my team should come from that region. You go anywhere in the country, I'm okay, but not that particular place. I do not want them. These people do not want to work. And that was his, I said, tagline. Right now, imagine somebody like this if he really works with someone from that particular region, he will always have that unconscious bias. This guy's not going to work. No, they don't work. Exactly. Yeah. So that's where the bias comes across. Now, this bias was not there earlier. This bias came after the managers experience with those people that are having spent 2 months with them, deploying them to the right kind of work, they still abscond. They would have at least informed. They would have at least told that we will not be coming, absconded, right? And that's when this happens. I agree, Richard. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts in the chat box. Please keep on doing that, everyone. And that's your unconscious bias. So, and it happens in the entire employee life cycle. Since the time the person comes in for his first interview till the time he exits the organization at different levels, the unconscious bias is right there. It's always there for the entire life cycle of an employee. A simple example comes in, a lot of time we talk about, diversified hiring. So there's a hiring that's happening because we want to include we want diversification into our team. So diversified hiring is happening. Somebody who is really a good fit for the organization, but if the person is tagged as, okay, she's just a diversified hiring, there's an unconscious bias. We'll not be able to work with the person really well till we remove it, or till we manage our unconscious bias. So all of these elements have started from recruitment, where somebody who comes from my university or my college or my city, I will have a little more affinity towards the person than somebody else. So there is a bias called as affinity bias, right? So I'll have more affinity towards a person. We are a few days back we saw this job posting which said, if you're above the age of 40, please do not apply. It was some not even an IT company, some other organization. So I have to do that. I become very curious when something like that happens. So I made a phone call and I said, all lies. I said, you know what, I'm 52 years of age. I've got like so much of experience. I saw your ad. The profile looks really good. Can I apply? And she said, ma'am, then you must have seen that we are not applying. We're not asking anybody of the age of 40 to come and join us. And my question was, why not? Well, after the age of 40, your thought processes are cemented, they are set. You do not want to change yourself. And we are a very dynamic and an agile organization. And we would want people who are very dynamic in their approach. And she gave me some gyan for like 7-8 minutes. And I had to tell her, my actual age. And I said, you know what? I am disappointed that, you are talking about people, their skill sets, and their agility only on the basis of their age. So ageism, another barrier. Gender, of course, we talk about it a lot, right? It is a barrier. We also have a barrier called, or our unconscious bias called anchoring, where, I just have one single piece of information about something, and I am basing my entire decision only on that one piece of information. I do not even want to dig deeper. I do not even want to understand it more. And that's my unconscious bias. So recruitment to onboarding to engagement to performance enablement management, everything, you will always find there is an unconscious bias. I'm not saying there is anything wrong about it, but if it is impacting our decision making, then we need to be a little aware of it, and therefore we need to overcome our unconscious bias. It is important to overcome them. We do not really want them to be hovering onto a decision, or to create that entire impact on my decision only because I have an unconscious bias, right? And that will happen to each one of us. If I give you same facts, same resources, same timeline to come to a decision about a certain problem, we will all have different solutions. Though the facts are similar, though everything is similar. Why? Because of our unconscious bias around things, because of how we understand those things. Therefore, we are going to give you a wonderful framework to combat these unconscious biases. So the very first one is to first know that you have a bias. understand that yes, there is an unconscious bias, and acknowledging of that bias is the very first step towards mitigating or towards erasing that bias that we have into our head. So know it, challenge yourself, ask yourself, if I am taking a certain decision or if I'm thinking something about this person, why am I doing that? First thing, so that's your knowing your bias. Once you understand this particular thing, understand from where it is coming. What is the context of that buyer? How is it, is it reflecting the culture of the organization or the way that we have been brought up? So understand the culture and the context. It is very important to constantly tell ourselves that something which is different than us is not wrong. Something which is different than us is just different. That's it. It may not be right, it may not be wrong, it's just different. Right? And that is where we need to understand from where is it coming, what is the culture, what is the context of the entire thing. So first acknowledge that yes, I have a bias. Second, from where, what is the root cause of that particular bias? Now that you have understood the first two elements, you can take an action. You can take an action by, removing that unconscious bias and saying, no, I'm not going to think about that. I want more facts. Okay, this person is a little elderly. Let me give that this task and see if they can complete it quicker. You never know. Maybe they can do that. Take action. Take action to do that. And this is not where we stop. Unconscious bias is there with everyone. So now that I know my unconscious bias, I know how to combat with my unconscious bias. Can I also help others and establish the change that we are looking for? Can I also help others to see that, what are their unconscious biases, making them aware of their unconscious bias, making them aware of the context from where the unconscious bias is coming in. What kind of action can they take? What kind of action can they, start to take so that those unconscious biases could be eradicated or could be moved? So this is the framework that we discuss in our sessions when we talk about the unconscious bias. What I have done in the last 25 odd minutes is giving you that flavor. Now, when we take up a session, we go a little deeper into this with caselets, scenarios, role plays, and discussions. For our participants to understand, to know what these are, and we also give them a little more insight on different kinds of unconscious biases. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'll take you to the second phase, which is the simulation. What I will first do is I will give you a quick walkthrough of the simulation. And from there on, we will share the details on the chat box, and then you can, of course, start to play. So just give me a quick second to share my screen with all of you. I hope my screen is up. Tarika, Taruja, if you can confirm, which says welcome to unconscious bias or unbiasing yourself.
We can see it, Dr.
Yes,
Tulika.
it is.
Perfect. Thank you. A couple of instructions for everybody, all of the participants. The simulation will work, or rather, the recommended platform is Google Chrome. Please use Google Chrome to play the simulation. But right now, I want your undivided attention for the next 5 minutes so that I can very quickly show you how are you going to navigate through this entire thing. So the storyline is quite simple. You are going to play the role of Carrie, who is the product design lead at the organization known as A to Z Fit. I am going to click on Tell Me More. This is a little introduction about the organization. So A to Z is actually into personal coaching. It has a fitness tracker. It helps people with custom workouts. Currently it's focusing on building a community where people can support each other into different fitness journeys. They also have an e-store from where the fitness enthusiast can buy all kind of items. Now, A to Z is aiming to make fitness accessible for everybody, and they also want to become an all-inclusive brand. So the CEO's intent doesn't equals the change, but they really, really want to create processes. They want to create more opportunities so that they can ensure that the customers who are in different stages of their fitness journey can all get the support that they're looking for. So you might be an advanced fitness enthusiast. I might have just started with my journey. A to Z aims at helping both of us. Now, not only just as a brand, but they also want to become good and all inclusive as an organization. They want to embrace diversity. They want to accept the differences between people and want to become absolutely inclusive. Every leader in our organization is encouraged to keep a keen eye on the unconscious bias and, of course, remove it if it is becoming a barrier towards the goal. I'll click on the forward button now. This is what your team is going to look like. So if I just zoom in, this is the team. This is where you are. Patrick, Saria, and Sosa, they are your peers. And James and Brinda, they report to you. We have also given you other stakeholders, which is one of them is an HR executive, and Jason is your business consultant. The role will come once we start to play the simulation. Let me close this. And here we are. So what you need to do is you are a part of a committee that has been made by the CEO. We call this committee as the Unconscious Bias Committee, right? And this committee is basically is expected to do some of these things. It needs to recognize and overcome the biases, also need to understand the perspectives of others, review in case any complaints come in, create an action plan, and of course, suggest better habits for inclusivity. We have also given a little character called LTP, which is let's take a pause. So instead of very quickly just going by your unconscious bias, you take an action. Rather, in the simulation, take a pause, think, know your bias, understand the culture and the context, and then take an action. So remember the cute framework and go ahead with the whole thing. Well, we are still working in a hybrid manner, so the only interaction that you will have with your team members is via emails or chats. Let me now click on the forward button. These are the two objectives that you need to achieve. The first one is a Cogni score. You have to achieve 3 stars or more, which is basically your ability to recognize your own unconscious bias, which is impacting your workplace. And action scores are, again, you have to achieve 3 stars or more. Now, this is your ability in case once you know your unconscious bias, are you able to correct your behavior and also influence the behaviors of others? Till now, the simulation timer has not begun. The simulation time for now is 30 minutes. I'm going to click on Start Simulation now. So this is the timer set on 30 minutes. These are your Cogni scores, the action scores that we need to take. This is a leaderboard which you can, in different time intervals, click and see how others in the team are performing. This is any kind of information around the objectives, if you want to know. Right now, I am your information desk. And this is a typical inbox that we all have for our emails. This is the conversations. This is where the sent mail that you are going to write is going to be there. This is if you need to filter your emails. Let's click on next and take a look at the first element, which is coming from the HR executive, Rick. Let me just close this. So Rick has given us a job, a profile for, or rather a JD for junior product designer. And he has asked for check the attached job description and letting us know if it is good enough or not. You can click on the JD, take a look at the JD. I'll close it for now, and then you can click on reply. You can either click on reply and only talk to Rick, or you can click on reply all, and everybody else will also be notified. You can also add people if you want. So I'm just randomly adding. You don't have to write any emails here. All you have to do is think and take up an action, or rather select the right email that you would want to respond to Rick. Now, this will reflect directly on your Cogni and your action scores. I am gonna be just taking the second one, randomly selecting it right now. Please take your time. I'll click on send. If you see, I've got a minus score, which means I was, my unconscious bias was right there working, and I did not pay good attention. And you will get a follow-up email, which will help you out to understand Where did we go wrong? So just have to respond to those emails through the option that we have given to you. Go back to conversions, and now we have some discussion. So let's go and take a look at what the chat messages are all about. Now, these are all automated chat messages. You need to read through these, and then whenever we are asking you for a response, you will have to give the right response. Here, the team is actually having a conversation on, how the weekend was. Like we all start, right? What really happened? What did you do on the weekend? So, Alicia says it was a big hectic for me because, I had to take some break in between meetings to relax. Very busy week at home. James also says a similar thing. And then there comes a discussion. And if you can see, we are now introducing the let's take a pause character here. In case you want to go ahead and take a look at the chat all over again, please do it. And then pick and choose your right response. I will just choose this one, send, and doing a very, very bad job today. I've again got a minus pointers here. So from 0.83, I've now come to 0.71. So this is what you have to do. There is going to be a mix of emails and chat messages. Read through them, go through them, try and understand what they are, and then take your actions accordingly. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask around the simulation. And David, I'll request you to please share the details on the chat box. Okay, so if there are no questions, we should start with the sim play. Taruja, David, need your help here.
Ma'am, can I?
Yes, sir, please.
Ma'am, we went into two sections. I could not understand which are those two sections. First is once we were where there were some questions, and the second one where there was a discussion.
Yeah. So the first section was till I showed you the simulation screen.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So the first discussion was around the CUTE framework, understanding of the unconscious bias. That is the first phase. Now, in a typical 4-hour session, the first phase is for at least 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's where we discuss on different elements. We have activities around everything, not just a quick discussion, but of course, all the activities.
Mm-hmm.
The second phase is when now that you know the CUTE framework, now you know the unconscious bias, why don't you convert everything into an action when you will play the simulation?
Okay.
Okay, so I showed you the simulation screen. I showed you how are you going to take some actions. Now for everything, there is going to be 4 to 5 options for you to select from. Now, how do you understand the problem? And what is going to be your choice of selection will reflect upon whether you are able to achieve the objective or not. And the objective is to get 3 stars in your 2 scores, cognitive scores and action scores.
Correct, ma'am. So how do we reach the simulation screen then now?
We are going to share the details on the chat box.
Okay.
And that's what we'll do. So just give us a moment. I have asked my colleague, David.
We have to go through the
Yeah,
Google Chrome.
David is just going to share the link now.
So once you get the link, copy paste the link on a Google Chrome tab. Right. So once you do that, it will ask you for your email ID, your name, and your surname. Just click that. And from there on, whatever you saw on my screen is exactly what you will see on yours as well. Other than that, I am right there to help you out. Unmute yourself and talk to me in case you get stuck anywhere.
Thank you, ma'am.
Perfect. Any other questions? Please go ahead. By the time David shares the details on the chat box. So the simulation time is 30 minutes. I would request you to use that time. Read through the statements, read through and understand what people are trying to say, because that is how we will be able to, manage our unconscious bias. The link is shared by TS to everyone on the chat box. I request you all to please copy paste the link on a Google Chrome tab. please go ahead and do that. I'm right here. In case of any difficulty, please reach out to us, unmute yourself and talk to us. Thank you. All the very best. Achieve more than 3 stars. I have been doing a very bad job till now. And once you're able to log in the simulation, when you see that pink color screen which says you are going to play the role of carry, please confirm it on the chat box that you were able to log in. That will give us a quick insight that you're facing no issues with the simulation. It is the same link shared by both Taruja and David, so do not get confused. You can use any one of those links.
The link is not getting copied, ma'am. It's only showing open link.
Click on open link then, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
Great.
can just click on it right away. It's going to take you to the browser window where you can put your name, email address, and
Yeah.
you'll straight away be in the simulation. If you can use Google Chrome, it'll work as well.
Yeah.
But if anybody has any issues, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to help you.
Thank you, Nagesh, for confirming. Thanks, Richa. I hope others have also logged in and you're not facing any troubles logging in. I hope you've all logged in and you start to play the simulation. Take up the actions after reading through the chats or the emails, because that's where you are going to combat your unconscious biases. Thank you. Do you remember your objective is to score 3 stars in cogni and 3 stars in your action, which means you need to be aware of your unconscious bias and also take actions and behavioral measures to combat it. So once you've completed the simulation, I request you to please download the report and take a look at it, because that's what we will be discussing once you have all completed playing the simulation. Thank you so much. Smita, don't worry. Do log in using the same email ID that you had used earlier, and it should take you back to where you were in the simulation. Please do that and let me know if that works for you or not. Perfect. Continue playing. Thank you.
From where do we download the report?
Sir, have you completed the simulation? Did you get a
Yes.
message that your simulation is complete?
Yes, ma'am, with a very bad score.
That is perfectly okay. Doesn't matter at all. It's just a learning experience for all of us today. So once
Yes.
you complete your simulation, you should get a message on the board. Okay, is it possible for you to share your screen with me? That's going to be much more quicker.
I got that message from Red something. 1 minute, ma'am. Now, though, I have come out of it. I said, okay, got it, and I came out.
Okay, can you re-log in using the same login email ID that you used
Acha.
for simulation?
From where do I do this, ma'am?
The link, I will repost the link for you on the chat box again.
Okay.
Just give me a moment to do that. Um, and try using this link if this works for you.
I'll do
I've
that.
just sent it on the chat box.
Yeah, I have re-logged in, ma'am.
Perfect.
It is in the same page. Now what do I do?
Could you please share your screen with us?
1 minute, ma'am.
Sure.
I have lost it. I don't know where it has gone.
Take your time. We still have time. A lot of people are still playing the simulation.
I am slightly less tech savvy, ma'am, so I don't know where I have.
Exactly. So on your Zoom,
Yeah, I have got the screen. What do I do, ma'am? How do I share the screen?
please come back to your Zoom screen
Huh?
and you'll see a green color button which says share screen.
Share screen. Yes, ma'am.
Click on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you click on that, you will see all kind of screens coming up. Uh, wherever your simulation screen is there, just select that one and click
Yes,
on
ma'am.
share.
Share. Acha, click on share. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I am getting your screen now.
Hmm.
Okay, you still have time to play, sir. It's 11 minutes, 18 seconds. Please, can you click on this mail that has come from Alicia King, team performance review? The second one. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you still have time. Please continue to play.
Acha, I still have time.
Yeah, you still have time. Please continue to.
So I have to open the attachment and then see, or is it?
Yes. I would suggest please open the attachment because then only you'll get to know about the fitness level calculator and everything.
Acha, okay.
Okay, please continue to play, sir.
Oh, so I'll stop share.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
So this is for everybody. If you complete the simulation, please wait for a while as others are about to complete it. Once each one of us is done playing the simulation, we will go to the part 3 of our discussion, which is your report debrief. So if you have already completed the simulation, go grab a cup of coffee and come back to us. Thank you. We will continue to play the simulation for the next 3 minutes. And then I will request the participants who are still playing simulation to log out, and you can always play the simulation back. So that won't be a problem. Next 3 minutes, try to take as many decisions as you can, and we'll continue with the report debrief after that. Thank you, everyone. We'll wait for 1 more minute. Thank you, Nagesh, for completing simulation. I hope you have your report with you as well. Last 1 more minute, and then I would request everyone to please log out from the simulation. You can re-log in and complete your sim once we are done with the discussion. Thank you so much, everyone. Another 1 more minute. So Nagesh, you can always go through the report while I will take you all through it. So that's going to be much more quicker and simpler for you as well. May I request the other participants who are still playing the simulation to please log out of the sim. You may re-log in and then you can play the simulation all over again. That's perfectly okay. Can we please all log out and come back to the Zoom screen where let's continue with what the discussion was. I'm going to give you a quick 30 seconds to log out from the simulation. Okay, so the first things first, how was your experience with the simulation? And I'll really appreciate if you can unmute yourself and talk to us or put your messages on the chat box. How was your experience playing the simulation? Liked it, not liked it, difficult, confusing, relatable? How was it? Okay, thanks, Nagesh. Thank you, Manish. So Manish, when you say it was good, can I please request you to elaborate the good here? I mean, was it the situations that you felt was good enough, or did you feel that, yes, it is, probing that unconscious bias thought process?
Yeah. So the situations which were there were partially relatable to the work that I do, and the information was also there, which is like you have to think, you have to ponder, and then give answers. Not there were no straight jacket answers. However, somewhere I felt it could be a mixed bag of responses where something could be partially correct, and some things are like obviously correct.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, in fact, when you take decisions, you will find out, let's say, you've chosen something which is absolutely, absolutely only talking about your unconscious bias being very high. Maybe the kind of scores that you lose comes down to minus 12 or minus 18. I have lost minus 32 once, because that was like my I think my highest unconscious bias ever. And that made me so aware of situations. When I play the simulation all over again, I really go through and say, okay, you know what, this is how you saw me, right? I took two actions and I got like wonderfully minus six in each one of them. So those are the places, we don't have a cheat code for this simulation. It is on the basis of today how you are understanding the whole thing, on the basis of the thought processes and the perceptions that we have today. That's how the entire thing functions. You may be in an absolutely fantastic mood, and the kind of decisions or the kind of options that you will select in the simulation will be very different from maybe when your mood is foul, or you also have had a similar experience in your real time. Right. So when we are having a team huddle and somebody comes up and says, I had so much of work this weekend, and you come across saying like, as a bachelor, you say, you know what, I also had a lot of hectic thing. What hectic thing did you have? You stay all alone. What do you really have to work? And that, clicks up that trigger into our unconscious bias. What do you mean if I'm a bachelor, that does not mean I have no other work? I might also be having the bills to pay, to get the home clean, to go and buy groceries. And also, my weekend goes into all of those elements. So, those are the factors in which we take up those decisions. And that's where your unconscious bias comes in. So wonderful. I am getting some message on my chat box. Saurabh says situations are crafted and provoke your thought process. Thank you, Saurabh. That is the intent, to make it confusing, to make it really, for you to really make it a thought-provoking one, so that you complete it in the rightest manner. Awesome, fantastic. For everybody else who are still playing the simulation, you may log into the same URL and continue playing it once I have given you a little detail about what the simulation report looks like. What are the elements that we can take out? Because I promised you to give you an entire flavor. So the third element or the third ingredient of this entire thing is, absolutely, doctor, absolutely. It does get triggered. Right, so let me now take you to the report. Now, when we do a session, uh, the facilitator spends around 15 minutes into discussion of different situations from the simulation. What kind of actions did people take? What were some of the elements that was very essential? And then we take them through the report. So I am doing the same thing with you, run a little quicker. So I'm just going to skip the first 3 pages because this all talks about the disclaimer and what the simulation was all about. Now, page number 4 that you see on your screen, and that's going to be quite similar to what your reports are. The very first thing that we are showing you is your overall unbiased score. Now, you will see that we have given you a meter which starts from 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, and we also have 3 different levels in between. So if you are scoring 1 or 2 in your unbiased score, that means you have a huge unconscious bias and you're not able to manage it well. And that's your novice scores. If it's emerging, that means you have scored between 3 and 4. Still not good, but at least you have started to try. 5 and 6 is competent, wherein you're in a very mediocre state. Some places you were able to manage well, some places you were not able to manage well. Proficient is 7 and 8 that you score on your unbiased overall score, which means you're almost there, a little bit more of conscious understanding of your unconscious biases, and you might become the role model, which is 9 and 10. So that is the first thing that you will see on your reports, telling you about your overall unconscious bias, sorry, your unbiased score, where you were able to manage your unconscious bias really well. Now, wherever in your report you see this little bulb, this light bulb, this is where we are giving you some suggestions, some advice, or a little feedback from our end. This is very customized basis upon what you have scored in your report. So from person to person, this thing changes. Now, if I would have scored a 3 or a 4, this particular part of my report would have been very different. The second thing that you will also see in your report talks about the objectives. We gave you 2 objectives, the cogni scores and the action scores. Cogni scores are basically your cognitive scores in terms of understanding, acknowledging, and knowing your bias. Action scores are taking those corrective actions or corrective behavioral actions to combat those scores. Now, based on how you have scored, you know your scores better. I've got a 4.46 and a 3.23 onto my sample report that I'm showing to you right now. Let me make it a little more bigger. Yes. So that's the rating that we have all received. Not much to talk here. We will talk about these things in a little detail now. So this is your competencies. There were some competencies that we were assessing on the back end. So competencies like awareness, sensitivity, behavioral agility, and commitment to change. You will see that your report consists of the pointers from 10 pointers that you have scored for each one of them. Awareness is basically my own ability to identify my biases. Yes, perhaps this is where I'm getting a little biased. Sensitivity is, of course, to understand that, if somebody else is doing something differently, it's not wrong, it's just different. So understanding the differences, understanding that other people can also have their own biases. If I can have mine, you can also have yours. That sensitivity toward other people's biases is also important. Then is your agility, your behavioral agility. Were you able to very quickly take corrections into your behavior or not? And finally is the commitment to change. Not just your own self, but also establishing a culture of change, establishing that everybody else is also able to understand the unconscious bias, and of course, identifying what is causing that unconscious bias, and of course, overcoming them. Now, these are the 4 competencies through which, again, the scale remains from novice till role model, and this is where you have scored. In the coming pages, we have given you a good description of each of these competencies, based on how did you perform in the simulation on the day that you were playing it. So this is the awareness. Well, the sample report says I've scored a 10, which means my awareness towards identifying the unconscious bias was really, really good. I was able to do a good amount of self-reflection. I was able to use the let's take pause and did pause, did read the entire conversation, and then took my action. I also read through the emails that were sent to me. I was also able to identify who's the right person to be there in that email, in CC or in the main address line. That's my awareness. The light bulb again gives you a little more detail about understanding of the simulation better and how did you perform in terms of awareness. Then comes this sensitivity, and this is where understanding others' biases, understanding if somebody is saying something why comes across. We move on to behavioral agility, which is the 3rd competency in terms of were you able to change your behaviors accordingly? Were you able to take the action which was reflecting that you're making certain changes into your overall behavior? And finally is the commitment to change. Now, this is what the 4 competencies are that we wanted to talk to you about the unconscious bias. Your reports will also give you the key takeaways, which actually says, remember that all of us have unconscious bias, nothing wrong in it, but we need to acknowledge it. So reflect, uncover your own bias, identify from where they are coming, remember the CUTE framework, know your bias, and then understand the culture and the context of it. question your judgments, question your assumptions so that you get a clarity from where you are getting that unconscious bias. Have empathy towards others that they will also have certain amount of unconscious bias. Most importantly, stay committed to the cause of overcoming unconscious bias at all given point in time. I'm going to stop my screen here, and if you have any questions, let's quickly take a 2 minutes time before I hand it over to Fariha and Taruja. Thank you, everyone.
Ma'am,
Yes, sir.
my report got downloaded. It said 5.
Okay.
So, but then the individual competency scores shows 2.01 and 2.06.
Okay.
So I could not relate it actually.
So if you'll see, you were supposed to get a 3-point star on cognitive scores and action scores. You
Yes.
almost got it, but it's mediocre. In all terms, it's mediocre, and that's why you got an overall score as 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it will be in our regular downloads, right? The report in the
It will be in your
computer.
regular downloads. Yes, it will be
Thank
there.
you. Thank you.
All right.